You see, in a small village where the moon always arrived early and the crickets never kept quiet, there lived a girl who liked to sing. Her voice, sweet like fresh palm wine. Her name, well, let's hold that for later, it tastes better when it settles on your tongue. Every evening, just after her mother blew out the lantern and her father's snores began their deep river song, the girl tiptoed to the front of an old wooden mirror in their compound. Not a new one. Not the kind with smooth corners and polished glass. No. This mirror had stories in its frame. Scratches, fingerprints from yesterday's ghosts, and carvings that no one in the family remembered making. Now, no one told her to sing there. The mirror didn't ask. But each night, she did. She'd hum first. Then open her mouth wider and let melodies float into the quiet. Her voice echoed back, sweeter, stronger, almost like someone else was singing along. She liked that part. Until the night she sang a tune that didn't belong to her. It was a lullaby her grandmother once warned about. Not with words, but with a stare. The kind of stare that says, "Put that back where you found it." But the girl didn't put it back. She sang it, slow and full of pride, her eyes locked on her reflection. And the mirror. It didn't smile. Something behind her reflection blinked. Just once. She blinked back. When she turned around, nothing. Just shadows and her old wrapper on a stool. But when she looked back at the mirror, her reflection was no longer singing. It was watching her. Carefully. As if it was waiting to be asked something. Her chest tightened. But she chuckled, because that's what you do when fear starts whispering too soon. She blamed her imagination. The crickets. The wind. Maybe the bowl of spicy pepper soup she ate too late. She sang again. Just to push the feeling away. But the reflection didn't sing this time. It whispered. Lips moved, but no sound came. So the girl leaned in. And the mirror cracked, just slightly. A single line, crawling across the corner like a spider returning home. The girl stepped back. She wanted to run. But her feet didn't agree. They liked the song. They liked the mirror. And the silence that had suddenly swallowed the night. Somewhere in the bush behind the house, an owl asked a question. Nobody answered. And in that moment, the girl smiled again. Because she thought the strange part was over. But it had only just yawned awake. Morning arrived, but it felt like a lie. The sun came out, but the shadows refused to leave. The girl's name, let's unwrap it now, was Ifwiko. Which means something precious has come. Her grandmother gave her that name after a dream where a white bird whispered it 3 times before flying into the clouds. Dreams like that are not ignored. Neither was Ifwiko. But that morning, Ifwiko didn't sing. She stirred her pap slowly, like someone stirring secrets. Her mother noticed, of course. Mothers always do. But she said nothing. Just watched her daughter with eyes that carried too many tales. Did you sleep well? Her mother asked. Ifwiko nodded. Then shook her head. Then nodded again. Her mother frowned but let it go, as though picking a fight with silence might offend the gods. That mirror. Ifwiko covered it with her old wrapper before the sun climbed fully. But something strange had happened. The crack. It was gone. Not hidden. Gone. Like it had never been there. Like the night had taken it back and said, "Shoo, that was just a taste." But Ifwiko remembered. And her reflection remembered, too. Now, there's a rule in that village, one that nobody writes down but everyone knows: don't sing in front of a mirror at night unless the song belongs to you. Some say the mirrors there are hungry. Some say they're doorways. Some don't say anything at all, they just avoid them after sunset. Ifwiko broke the rule. So, of course, something followed her. At first, it was little things. Her shadow didn't fall where it should. Her footsteps echoed even on soft ground. And her voice. It began to sound older. Wiser. as if someone else was inside, trying to speak with her lips. The chickens avoided her. The cat hissed at her shadow. And her best friend, Ibyub, didn't smile when she walked into the clearing to play. "You smell like something watching," he said. She laughed, but even her laugh sounded strange to her. Like it was wearing a mask. That night, she tried to sleep early. She tied her wrapper tight and lay down, pretending the mirror didn't exist. But it did. The wind tapped the window once. Then again. Then harder. She sat up. The wrapper had fallen. The mirror was bare. And her reflection. It was already standing. Not lying. Already staring. Not blinking. This time, it wasn't waiting. It raised a hand, slow and smooth, and pointed behind her. Ifwiko didn't want to look. But fear has a crooked finger, and it pulled her head slowly, like a puppet. Behind her, nothing but the corner of the room. Empty. At least, that's what she told herself. But her heart beat faster. Because the reflection was still pointing. Still watching. And now, it was smiling. But the smile wasn't hers. The air in the room thickened, like hot Gary soaking in a bowl too long. Ifwiko didn't dare move. Not forward, not back. Just sat there, pretending stillness was safety. But the mirror wasn't pretending. The reflection dropped its hand and tilted its head, curious, like a cat watching a crawling insect. Ifwiko wanted to scream, but she remembered, the last time she sang, something inside that glass blinked. What if her voice was the key? What if silence was her only lock? So she kept quiet. Her breath stayed trapped in her throat. Her heart made a sound loud enough to wake the ancestors, but her lips didn't move. The reflection blinked. Then it stepped forward. "Now, listen well, mirrors don't let you out. They show. They copy. But they don't open. At least, not for everyone. But this one. It had rules of its own. As the figure moved, its steps made no sound. No crunch of floor. No creak of wood. Just motion, like a whisper crawling across water. Then came the worst part, it reached out. Not toward her. But toward the edge of the mirror. And it pushed. And the glass rippled. Like water. Ifwiko gasped. The reflection smiled wider. That smile, too many teeth. Not all hers. Suddenly, a cough came from outside. Her father, waking up early. The morning cock followed with a confused crow, still rubbing sleep from its beak. And just like that, the mirror stopped moving. The figure stepped back. And the reflection became normal again. Breathing heavy, chest pounding, Ifwiko stood up, grabbed her wrapper, and flung it over the mirror like it was a dead body she didn't want to see. She didn't wait for her mother's morning song. She didn't wait to chew her yam. She ran straight out to the back of the compound and sat under the orange tree, eyes wide and unblinking. That's when she heard the voice. Not from the mirror this time. But from behind the tree. "You heard the song, didn't you?" it asked. Ifwiko turned slowly. It was an old woman. Skin like old cloth, but eyes bright as morning fire. She sat on a short stool that hadn't been there yesterday, grinding something black inside a wooden bowl. "I didn't mean to," Ifwiko whispered. The woman chuckled, but it sounded like dry leaves blowing across stone. "No one ever does," she said, picking up a white feather and dipping it into the bowl. "That song was made for calling. And now, something is on its way." "What is coming?" Ifwiko asked, her voice shaking. The woman smiled, but didn't answer. Instead, she stood, dropped the feather into Ifwiko's palm, and said, "When it reaches for you again, don't run. Just sing the last line backward." Then she walked behind the tree. And vanished. Ifwiko looked around. No stool. No bowl. Just her and the feather. And the sudden cold that hugged her bones, even though the sun had already climbed halfway across the sky. Ifwiko kept that feather like it held her breath. She wrapped it in a piece of her old skirt and tucked it beneath her mat, whispering a prayer in a language she didn't fully know, but hoped someone old and kind was listening. That day, the wind was loud. Too loud. It pushed doors open without knocking. It knocked calabashes off shelves. It even yanked one boy's slippers off his feet and tossed them on the roof. But no one laughed. Because the elders said, when the wind behaves like a child, something bigger is scolding it. And something was. The sky didn't rain, but it rumbled. A warning, not a blessing. Ifwiko didn't tell her mother about the mirror. Or the reflection. Or the woman. Mothers have sharp ears, but she feared her mother's silence more than her shouts. Instead, she watched. She watched the mirror all day. Even with the wrapper over it, she felt it staring back. Breathing. Waiting. Night came too early. The sun ran off like a child caught stealing. Ifwiko held her breath from the moment the lantern was lit. She didn't want to sleep. Sleep invited dreams. And dreams invited doors. And she had already opened one. Her father snored. Her mother shifted. The lantern died. And the room swallowed itself. The feather under her mat began to warm, like a coal buried in cloth. She sat up slowly. The wrapper on the mirror fluttered, though the air was still. One corner lifted. Then another. The mirror peeked out. And the reflection. It wasn't waiting anymore. It was calling. Its lips moved, slow, familiar. The same lullaby. The same voice. But this time, it stopped halfway through the song, and whispered the final line. Backwards. Ifwiko's skin tightened. Her hands trembled. But she remembered what the old woman said. So she did the same. She sang the last line, slowly, backward. As soon as the last word fell, the mirror cracked. Not a thin line this time. A deep one. From corner to corner. The reflection screamed, but no sound came. It pounded the glass. It clawed. It pleaded with its eyes. But the crack grew thicker, like roots pushing through stone. Then. Stillness. Her reflection froze. Mouth wide. Eyes wide. Then it shattered. Not into glass, but into black dust. The mirror went dark. No shine. No shimmer. Just a flat, dead surface that refused to show her face. And in the silence that followed, Ifwiko felt the room sigh. As if something had left. Or maybe something had just stepped back, to wait. She didn't sleep. She sat beside the mirror all night, holding the feather, whispering that final line to herself like a charm. Because she knew now. It wasn't just a mirror. It was a mouth. And she had fed it a song. At cockcrow, Ifwiko finally blinked. The mirror stayed silent. The wrapper, now folded on the ground, looked tired, like even it had witnessed too much. Her mother woke humming softly, as usual, but the tune made Ifwiko flinch. She wasn't afraid of the song. She was afraid of singing it wrong. Breakfast came with silence. Even the goats outside chewed without fuss. The wind, once mischievous, walked gently through the trees, as if apologizing. But peace is a sly thing. It hides its claws until you turn your back. That afternoon, Ibyub came running, breath wild, hair full of leaves. "Ifwiko," he shouted, "come and see." She followed, clutching the feather in her pocket like a charm. He led her to the edge of the village, where the path meets the forest. The trees there had grown strange. Bent, but not broken. Leaves turned silver under the sun. And right in the middle of the path was something new. A mirror. Standing tall. Unframed. Unowned. Just there. As if someone had planted it and it had grown overnight. "What's it doing here?" she asked. Ibyub shrugged. It was just waiting. Waiting. That word again. Ifwiko's knees felt like weak yam. She stepped forward, slowly, while Ibube held her wrist. "I wouldn't go close," he whispered. But the mirror pulled her eyes like a magnet. And when she looked, her reflection smiled. But not the way she smiled. This one had crooked lips and eyes too wide. It looked happy, too happy. And behind that reflection stood others. Shapes. Shadows. Figures that looked like people but didn't move right. Their heads tilted, their fingers long, their backs bent in strange places. One of them wore her old wrapper. The one she'd used to cover the first mirror. She stepped back. The mirror didn't follow. But the reflection didn't fade. It stood still. Watching. Ibube didn't see it. He just saw her panic. "You all right?" he asked. Ifwiko nodded too quickly. "Just tired," she lied. They walked back without speaking. The trees behind them rustled, but the wind didn't blow. That night, the mirror in her room was gone. Not hidden. Gone. The wall where it stood was clean, fresh, like nothing had ever touched it. But in her sleep, she heard singing. Not her voice. Not even human. Just sound, sweet and wrong at the same time, like a bird trapped in a flute. And when she opened her eyes, the white feather was floating. Not falling. Floating. It turned slowly in the air, like it was listening to something only it could hear. And then it began to burn. Quietly. No heat. No smoke. Just light. And from the tiny flame, something whispered. Not from outside. From inside her head. "Let us in." Ifwiko woke up with the scent of something old in her nose, like wet ash and forgotten prayers. The feather. Gone. Not a trace. Not even a curl of burnt cloth beneath her mat. But her head, it felt heavy. Like someone had left a drum inside and tapped it once every second. Boom. 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 Outside, life acted normal. A goat chewed loudly on someone's wrapper. Children chased a rooster who clearly had no time for games. Someone pounded yam with rhythm. But inside Ifwiko, something wasn't dancing. She didn't tell her mother. She didn't tell Ibube. But the songs in her sleep had changed. They weren't lullabies anymore. They were instructions. In whispers. In riddles. In voices that twisted her name like it was clay. By evening, her reflection returned, not in her room. Not in any mirror she knew. But in water. She fetched from the clay pot near the compound, bent over, and there it was. Her face. Only, not. Her eyes blinked, but the reflection didn't. It smirked, like a trickster who'd just stolen fire and dared the gods to chase him. Ifwiko dropped the cup. Water spilled. The pot cracked. Her mother shouted something about carelessness, but Ifwiko didn't hear it. All she heard was laughter. Low and humming, like a drum with no skin. That night, she did what no one in her family had ever dared. She went to her grandmother's old hut. It stood at the far end of the compound, untouched since the burial. They said it was empty. They said her spirit had passed on. But Ifwiko had questions, and sometimes the dead are better at answers than the living. She stepped inside. Dust kissed her feet. The air felt heavy, like breath holding breath. Spiderwebs waved greetings. And in the middle of the room, a small calabash filled with black stones. Beside it, another feather. Brown this time. Bent at the tip. And on the wall, painted in faded red, were the last words of the forbidden lullaby, written backwards. Her heart stuttered. Someone had sung it before. Someone who tried to undo it. She turned to leave. But the door shut. By itself. And the hut became dark. Very dark. Then, light. A small flame appeared on its own. Hovering in the air. And from its center, a whisper bloomed. "You didn't finish the song." Ifwiko backed into the wall. "I don't want to finish it." The flame spun. Laughed. But it remembers you. The air thickened. And from the shadow beside her, a hand reached out. Not to grab. To offer. It held another mirror. Small. Round. Cracked. She didn't want to take it. But her own hand, on its own, did. The mirror pulsed like a heartbeat. She looked into it. And saw not herself. But a door. A real one. Inside her. And something was knocking from the other side. She didn't blink. Didn't breathe. The mirror in her hand was warm, but not like fire, more like skin. And it pulsed. Slow and steady, like something alive was trapped inside, sleeping with one eye open. Ifwiko stepped back, but the hut didn't let her. The walls leaned closer, like they'd grown ears. She wanted to drop the mirror, but her fingers had turned greedy. They gripped it like a secret they weren't ready to lose. Then came the second knock. From inside the mirror. Not loud. Not soft. Just, certain. Knock. 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 3 times. And the mirror blinked. Not flashed. Blinked. A small eye opened in its center. Deep. Golden. Familiar. Then it spoke. Not with words. With feeling. A question poured into her bones. Will you open it? She didn't answer. Not with her mouth. But her heart said something. It trembled. It sang a quiet yes without meaning to. And that was enough. The room shook. The mirror dissolved into smoke and flew straight into her chest, like a swallow diving into water. Ifwiko gasped. Her body twisted. Not in pain. Not in fear. In change. Something inside her had turned. Not broken. Turned. Like a page. When she opened her eyes again, the hut was empty. Clean. No dust. No stones. No writing on the wall. Just silence. And the sound of a baby crying. But she was alone. Or so she thought. She stepped outside, and the night had come early again. Sky black. Stars shy. Wind holding its breath. She walked slowly past the yam barn, past the whispering trees, past the spot where the first mirror once stood. Nothing called to her. Nothing stopped her. Until she reached the river. She hadn't meant to go there. Her feet simply chose the path. By the edge of the water, she knelt. Looked in. And there she was. Her face. Only now, the reflection didn't blink when she did. It smiled a little sooner. And whispered something she couldn't hear. So she leaned closer. The water rippled. And her reflection reached out, this time not to grab, not to scare, but to point. To the other side of the river. There, half hidden in the reeds, stood a figure. Tall. Still. Wearing a necklace made of feathers. Not white. Not brown. But black. Midnight black. They glowed faintly, like coals that had almost forgotten they were once fire. The figure didn't move. Didn't speak. Just waited. Then slowly, it raised one hand. And beckoned. Once. Twice. Ifwiko didn't move. But the ground beneath her did. Just a little. Just enough to remind her. She wasn't the only one walking in her skin anymore. She should have turned back. But some stories don't allow escape once your name has been whispered into their roots. Ifwiko stood slowly, her legs unsure, her breath shallow. The river in front of her gurgled softly, like it was laughing in its sleep. The figure across the water didn't move again. It just waited, wrapped in shadows, with those black feathers glowing like dying stars. Then came the whisper. From behind her. If you cross, you mustn't look back. She turned sharply, no one. Just wind. But the words were still there, sticky in the air. If you look back, you won't return the same. She didn't speak. Didn't ask who. She already knew the question wouldn't come with an answer. Instead, she stepped forward. The river wasn't deep. But tonight, it felt bottomless. Her first foot touched the water, it didn't splash. It folded around her ankle like silk, cold and knowing. Each step felt like walking through memory. By the time she reached the middle, the moon had dipped low, and the stars were blinking faster. By the time she reached the other side, the figure had vanished. But not without leaving something behind. A necklace. Laid gently on the ground. Made of black feathers, bones the size of fingernails, and a single mirror shard at the center. It pulsed softly. Not red. Not white. But colorless. Like forgotten light. Ifwiko bent and picked it up. The instant she did, the trees around her changed. Their leaves curled. Their trunks stretched taller. The wind smelled older. And somewhere, hidden behind bark and breath, something laughed with no mouth. She turned around, against the warning, and looked back across the river. And there, on the other bank, she saw herself. Still kneeling. Still staring into the water. Still waiting. That version of her looked up. Smiled. And stood. They stared at each other across the water. Both breathing. Both real. But only one would return. Ifwiko blinked. And in that blink, her other self vanished, like steam from hot stew. The river was gone. She now stood in a different place. Not village. Not forest. Just a wide, open land filled with mirrors standing like trees. Some were tall. Some were broken. Some turned their faces away as she walked past. But one mirror stood in the center. Round. Gold-edged. And humming. It showed no reflection. Only a door. Carved in wood so dark it looked like night itself had been carved thin. The necklace around her neck warmed. The mirror pulsed once. Then the door opened. No creak. No shout. Just space. And the smell of something old and unfinished. She stepped in. The door closed. The land of mirrors held its breath. And Ifwiko. She had begun to remember a song she never learned. Yet somehow, she knew all the words. The air inside the mirror door wasn't air at all. It was thicker. Like smoke that had forgotten how to rise. Like stories wrapped in cobwebs. Ifwiko walked slowly, careful not to think too loudly. This place, it listened. She passed walls made of nothing, yet each one held a memory, faint, flickering, unfinished. A boy running from his shadow. A woman weeping over a mirror that whispered back. A goat speaking in riddles no one dared answer. She didn't stop. Didn't speak. Until the hallway bent. Yes, bent. Not turned, bent. Like a spine curling after too many years of silence. And at the end, a small room. Round. With a single stool. And sitting on it. Herself. But older. Eyes soft and sharp. Lips pressed, as though holding back all the words in the world. They stared at each other. Ifwiko stepped closer. The older version smiled. Finally. Sit, she said. So Ifwiko sat. You've been walking in echoes, the older one said. You know that now, don't you? Ifwiko nodded. The older her touched her cheek. Warm fingers. Real. You took the song. I didn't mean to. But it meant to find you. Silence. Then the older Ifwiko leaned forward and pulled something from behind her, wrapped in cloth. She unwrapped it. Another mirror. But this one didn't reflect anything. Just shimmered. Like a pool of oil and moonlight. This is where they gather, she said. Who? The others. What others? Versions. Reflections. Choices. Ifwiko swallowed hard. The mirror in her lap hummed. The necklace tightened gently around her throat. The room began to hum. Low. Deep. Like earth singing to itself. The older Ifwiko placed the mirror in her hands. You've come far enough, she whispered. Then leaned in close. Now choose. And with that, the older Ifwiko turned to dust. No scream. No light. Just dust. Falling silently to the floor. The stool tipped and vanished. And Ifwiko was alone. Holding a mirror. Staring into it. Waiting. Until something appeared in the shimmer. 2 paths. One where she returned to her village, voice untouched, memory wiped, as though none of it had happened. Safe. Simple. Ordinary. The other. A road made of feathers, teeth, and song. A path that twisted through shadow and story. No safety. But power. She looked at both. Then sang the line backward again. And chose. The moment Ifwiko made her choice, the mirror dissolved in her hands. Not shattered. Not cracked. Just faded, like mist kissed by morning sun. And in its place, a path. Narrow. Alive. It stretched out before her, glowing faintly beneath her feet, white feathers scattered along it, bones tucked between the stones, and fragments of old lullabies humming in the wind. She didn't look back. Couldn't. Something inside her had closed the door with a soundless click. The world around her shifted. Trees whispered in voices that weren't theirs. Birds flew backward. Time twisted its ankles and fell on purpose. Still, she walked. She walked past mirrors buried halfway into the ground like forgotten dreams. She walked through a forest where reflections hung from branches like fruit. Some of them moved when she passed. Some called her name. But she didn't stop. Because the song was building in her chest again. Not the one from the mirror. Her song. New, wild, unfinished. It didn't have words yet, but it had rhythm. And heart. And teeth. At the edge of the path, where the world began to curl into itself like a sleeping snake, she saw it. A throne. Made not of gold or wood, but sound. Vibrating softly. Waiting. Behind it stood all the versions of herself she had never become. The scared girl who ran. The proud one who lied. The silent one who watched. Each of them faded as she passed, like shadows blinking out at sunrise. She climbed the steps to the throne. There were no drums. No applause. Just a wind that bowed as she passed. At the top, she sat. The feathers on her necklace curled inward. The bones snapped, not in anger, but like fingers cracking before work. And in the sky above, 1,000 mirrors turned at once, catching the light of something far older than the moon. She opened her mouth. And sang. No backward lines. No borrowed tunes. Her own. Clear. Strong. Alive. With every note, a new mirror cracked, freeing something behind it. Birds with faces. Names with wings. Laughs that hadn't been heard in years. The world below her stirred. Not in fear. In memory. They remembered her. They had waited. And now, their songbearer had come home. Ifwiko stood. The throne melted into the wind. The sky folded. And the mirrors, every single one, reflected her face. Smiling. Not wide. Not strange. Just right. She stepped into the center of them, arms open, voice rising. And the story didn't end. Because stories like hers never end. They echo. They return in dreams. In lullabies. In warnings whispered to children who stand too long in front of mirrors. So if ever you find yourself humming at night, alone with your reflection, and you see it smiled too early or blinked too slow, stop. Listen. Because Ifwiko's song still walks the world. And she's not done singing.